Well, there's certainly no doubt that COVID-19 is hurting the global economy. The world's governments are trying to put money back in people's pockets. Of course, money doesn't grow on trees, but trees may offer a solution. It sounds like a riddle, but in fact, a new study backs it up. Some details now. Reporter Michael Marillier joining me. Good evening, Michael. So this research explores the economic impact of COVID-19. Where do trees come in?
Yeah, absolutely, Sally. So this is research by Boston University in the US. And of course, coronavirus is intimately linked to trees and forests. And the experts say that if we protect our trees and forests, we could avoid another coronavirus, and that could save the world a lot of pain, especially financial pain. So let me take you inside my magical forest, Sally, and we'll explore the idea of the money tree. Of course, the problem with a lot of these viruses, just like coronavirus, is that they start with animal-human transmission. So, for example, Sally, a bat getting into contact with a human being, or perhaps a bat getting into contact with livestock, and then us as humans end up eating the livestock, and we develop a virus like coronavirus. And why is this happening? Well, the lines between humans and animals are starting to blur in that we are encroaching on their environment. So, for example, large-scale logging, Sally, livestock farming, which of course requires large amounts of land, and so a lot of trees and forests are cut down. And then, of course, the wild meat trade. There's been a lot of speculation that coronavirus actually started in an illegal wildlife market in China. So you have to ask yourself whether the wild meat trade isn't playing a role. And the experts saying, Sally, that 2 new viruses are passed from animals to humans every year. And that's been the case for the last century. Thankfully, not every virus has the kind of consequences that we've seen with COVID-19, but still, this is a massive problem. Animal to human transmission. And if we stayed clear of our forests, perhaps we wouldn't have such a big problem and we wouldn't pay the financial costs. So let's focus on the financial costs of the coronavirus pandemic. Of course, it has wreaked havoc on the world's economies, Sally. Lost GDP, you're seeing a lot of zeros in that number. Let me simplify it for you. It's about $5.6 trillion. Times that by about 17 if you want to get the rand amount. The experts also calculating what's known as the mortality cost, Sally. So this is the impact of the fatalities from coronavirus. So, for example, the skills that we've lost, the impact on the workforce with so many people losing their lives to coronavirus. So let's move to our next graphic and we'll tally it all up for you just to explore the cost of this pandemic, around about $8.1 trillion. And these researchers saying, Sally, that that's a conservative estimate, $8.1 trillion. It blows the mind.
It does. It is a lot of money. There's a lot of zeros on that screen and it's giving me a headache. So the point being, a lot of money has been lost because of COVID-19. And things tend to get stripped back to the bare bones. So things like protecting our forests, that sort of thing, often is right at the bottom of the list. And I'm sure that also costs money.
Yeah, absolutely. So the program, or the proposed program that's coming from this study, indicates that it will cost money to protect the forest, to monitor what's going on, to prevent animal to human transmission. But here's the catch, Sally, it's much, much less than the cost of a pandemic and a global recession. Let's focus on that very quickly. The researchers at Boston University saying that the actual cost per year would be about $22 billion. Now, this is the global cost that would be shared by governments around the world. Now, you're seeing a lot of zeros in that number, right? $22 billion sounds like a lot. But we did the math, Sally. It's about 368 times cheaper than the cost of the coronavirus pandemic. So if we just paid a little bit of money each year, we could avoid a crisis, hopefully, like the one that we've seen, which has cost us $8.1 trillion.
Does the study go into what it would take, how that money would be used? Is it about making sure humans don't encroach on the forest, or are there other things that money is used for?
So several factors would be involved, several programs, if you like. One would be surveillance and monitoring in terms of deforestation. Another would be trying to limit the edges of the forest. So what happens when farming encroaches upon a forest, for example, is that there are more and more edges to the forest. And when there are a lot of edges, as it were, it means that there's likely to be more human interaction. So they're basically trying to say, well, let's try and keep a big boundary between the forest and settlements, the forests and the farms, and all those places where potentially humans could interact with animals.
Well, let's hope the lesson has been learned. Thank you very much, Michael Marillier.